Welcome to the Final Wager's Guide to Game Theory. Today, we're going to look at what's known as Nash equilibrium. We'll use one of the most fundamental situations of game theory, the prisoner's dilemma. In the prisoner's dilemma, two suspects are accused of a crime. They're in separate cells and can't talk to each other. Neither cares about each other. In other words, each is just looking out for himself. The DA doesn't have enough evidence to convict either of them on the greater charge, so he offers them a deal. They can either deny the crime or confess. If both deny the charge, the DA can only pursue a lesser crime for 5 years in prison each. If both confess, the DA will go after them for 10 years each. And if one confesses and the other denies, the confessor will be granted immunity in return for evidence against the other, who will receive a sentence of 20 years. To look at the situation more graphically, we set up what's called a payoff matrix. On the rows, we have the options for prisoner A. He can confess or deny. Prisoner B has the same options. Where these two cross is where we put the punishments for a given combination. We know that if both deny, each will get 5 years in jail. So we put -5, -5 in the cell where those two options meet. Prisoner A's outcome is represented by the first number, and prisoner B by the second. Now we fill in the rest of the matrix. They both confess, they each get 10 years, -10, -10. And if one denies and the other confesses, the denier gets 20 years while the confessor walks. If you look at the two prisoners as a whole, the best option for the system is for both to deny. That way, they have a total of just 10 years in prison. Each of the other three options gives a total of 20 years between the two of them. But remember, each is selfish. Let's look at it from prisoner A's perspective. He thinks, if prisoner B denies, then if I deny I get 5 years, but if I confess, I'm a free man. So I'm going to confess. Prisoner B then looks at that situation and says, well, if prisoner A confesses, I can deny I get 20 years, or confess and get 10 years. 10 years sounds better. So I'll confess. This game is what we call a symmetrical game, because each player is faced with the same possibilities. So if prisoner B looks at prisoner A and says, if prisoner A denies, I'd rather confess. Then prisoner A says, if prisoner B confesses, I'm going to confess. Then no matter what, both are going to confess and we'll get what's called a Nash equilibrium. A Nash equilibrium is a situation where no player can benefit from deviating from that course of action. If one of the prisoners denies, then he'll be worse off, so neither will do that. But keep in mind, as we saw here, it might not have the best benefit for the group as a whole. Now let's look at a real-world application. Let's say FedEx and UPS want to increase sales in a particular market. Each can be either passive or aggressive with its marketing. If they're both passive, they'll each make $5 million. If they're both aggressive, they'll each make only $2 million. And if one's aggressive and one's passive, the aggressor will make $7 million and the other will make nothing. So we return to the matrix. If both are passive, each is going to take $5 million. If both are aggressive, they'll both make $2 million. And if they split on strategy, the aggressor will make $7 million and the passive company 0. If they're both passive, their combined profits will be $10 million. So as a whole, that's the best strategy. The thing is, each can do better individually by being aggressive. If UPS is passive, FedEx will make 7 instead of 5 by being aggressive. If that's the case, UPS will be aggressive and make 2 instead of 0. The same works in reverse. So both being aggressive is the Nash equilibrium, although as a whole, the two companies can do better. So what does this have to do with Final Jeopardy wagering? Let's say our leader has 20,000, while our trailer has 14,000. Under traditional wagering theory, the leader should wager at least 8,000, and the trailer should wager between 0 and 2,000. However, there are mind games that both can play. If the leader thinks the trailer will wager small, the leader can wager between 0 and 4,000 and guarantee himself a win. And if the trailer thinks the leader might do this, the trailer might wager between 10,000 and everything. Let's assume that each player has a 50% chance of getting Final Jeopardy correct. Here's our payoff matrix. We'll derive these calculations later. For now, I'll just tell you what they are. If both wager small, the leader will win 100% of the time. If both wager large, the leader will win 75% of the time. And if they differ on their strategies, then each will win half the time. Let's start by looking at the typical strategy. The leader bets large, while the trailer goes small. The leader says, well, if I think the trailer is going to bet small, then I can win 100% of the time if I bet small. Then the trailer thinks about it and says, well, if the leader bets small, I can win 50% of the time instead of 0% of the time by betting large. And around we go. If the trailer goes large, the leader can do better by wagering large himself. And finally, if the leader's going large, the trailer's better off going small. Hey, we completed a full circuit. So, is there a Nash equilibrium here? Why, yes there is. But where is it? We'll find out next time on The Final Wager.